The narcissist. They are a psychological predator. They study their victims with the meticulousness of a scientist. They learn your weaknesses, those hidden vulnerabilities, that soft underbelly you try so hard to conceal. They know exactly where to press, where to poke, to gain the control they so desperately crave. And in most cases, chillingly, they succeed, but there's a type of person, a rare breed, the narcissist avoids like the plague. A person they can't manipulate, can't break, can't destroy. A person who, quite frankly, terrifies them. Carl Jung, the pioneering psychologist, identified this type of person in his studies of the shadow and the process of individuation, that journey towards wholeness. And Andrew Huberman, through the lens of modern neuroscience, has confirmed why this person is literally immune to the narcissist's manipulative tactics. Today, you'll discover if you are that type of person, that resilient soul, and if you're not quite there yet, you'll understand exactly what you need to develop to become that impenetrable force. First, we need to understand how the narcissist operates. Jung was one of the first to map out the psychological architecture of pathological narcissism. He discovered that the narcissist is, in reality, a profoundly fragmented person. Behind that carefully constructed facade of grandiosity and false confidence lies a terrifying void. The narcissist lacks a stable sense of self. They desperately need external validation, a constant stream of affirmation, just to feel real. Without this validation, they experience what Jung called ego disintegration. It's as if they cease to exist, they fade away. Huberman explains this in neurological terms. The narcissist's brain has an abnormal activation in the reward system. They require constant doses of admiration, attention, and control over others to keep their dopamine levels stable. Without it, they enter a state of emotional withdrawal, a state that is genuinely too unbearably painful for them. That's why the narcissist is so destructive, so relentless. They're not just being cruel for the sheer fun of it. They are fighting for their own psychological survival, and to survive, they must drain energy from other people. Jung called this psychic vampirism. The narcissist feeds on the life force of others because they cannot generate their own. They've developed a sophisticated arsenal of techniques to extract this energy, to leech onto you and bleed you dry. Emotional manipulation, gaslighting, love bombing, followed by swift and brutal abandonment, triangulation, projection. All of these tactics serve a single, sinister purpose: to emotionally unbalance the victim, to throw them off kilter, and transform them into a source of narcissistic supply. And here's the crucial point. All of these tactics depend on one thing to function. They depend on the victim having specific weak spots, specific vulnerabilities that the narcissist can ruthlessly exploit. Jung identified these weak spots with surgical precision: the overwhelming need for external approval, the crippling difficulty in trusting your own perceptions, the unhealthy tendency to assume responsibility for the feelings of others, the tragic inability to maintain firm boundaries, the self-destructive belief that love means complete self-sacrifice. If you harbor these weak spots, if these vulnerabilities reside within you, the narcissist will find them. They will sniff them out like a bloodhound, and they will use them against you, implacably. But there exists a type of person who lacks these weak spots. Or more precisely, there exists a type of person who has diligently worked on these weak spots until they cease to be vulnerabilities, until they've been transmuted into strength. Jung called this transformative process individuation. It's the process of becoming whole, of integrating all parts of yourself, including the shadow, that darker side we often try to suppress. It's about developing a sense of self so solid, so stable, that it no longer depends on external validation to exist. The individuated person is the narcissist's ultimate nightmare. And I'm going to explain exactly why. The first characteristic of this individual is what Jung termed a stable internal center. They know who they are, not in an arrogant or defensive way, but in a calm and unflappable, unwavering way. Their identity is not built on the shifting sands of other people's opinions, external achievements, or fleeting relationships. They simply were. Huberman explains that this stability has a real neurological basis. People with an integrated sense of self show different activation patterns in the medial prefrontal cortex, that region of the brain associated with self-reference. They don't need constant external validation because their nervous system already provides that validation internally. When the narcissist attempts to destabilize this person with criticism, manipulation, or psychological games, it simply doesn't work. It's like trying to topple a mountain with a puff of air. The mountain doesn't even notice. This is profoundly unsettling for the narcissist. Their tactics have always worked before. They're accustomed to seeing people crumble under their manipulation, but this person doesn't crumble. They remain centered, calm, unshakable. And the narcissist simply doesn't know what to do with that. The second characteristic is the ability to see through the masks, those carefully crafted facades. Jung spoke about how the individuated person develops a heightened perception that penetrates beyond superficial appearances. They can feel the truth behind the words. They can perceive the real intentions behind the actions. They can see through the lies. The narcissist depends entirely on their masks. Their entire existence is an elaborate, exhausting performance. They invest an enormous amount of energy maintaining the facade of the perfect person, the innocent victim, or the generous savior, depending on what the situation demands. But the individuated person sees right through it all. They are not fooled by superficial charm. They are not seduced by love bombing. They are not manipulated by the victim card. They simply see what lies behind the curtain, the vulnerable, wounded child within. Huberman relates this to the function of the insula, a region of the brain responsible for interoceptive awareness. People with high interoceptive awareness are better able to detect incongruities between what someone says and what they really feel. They pick up on the subtle cues that indicate manipulation, the micro-expressions, the subtle shifts in tone. For the narcissist, being seen is the most terrifying thing that can happen. Their entire psychological structure is built to avoid this. They cannot allow anyone to see the emptiness, the void, behind the mask. And when they encounter someone who does see, they panic. The third characteristic is the ability to maintain unshakable boundaries. Jung emphasized that individuation involves developing a clear sense of where you end and where the other person begins. The individuated person knows what is their responsibility and what is not. They don't take on the problems, the emotions, or the behaviors of others as their own. The narcissist depends on people with weak boundaries. Their manipulative tactics work by invading the victim's psychological space, blurring responsibilities, making the victim feel guilty for things that are not their fault, creating a fog of confusion and obligation. But when they encounter someone with solid boundaries, nothing works. The person simply says no. They don't over-explain themselves. They don't feel guilty. They are not sucked into the narcissist's dramas. They maintain their position with a quiet firmness. That is absolutely disconcerting to the manipulator. Huberman discusses how the autonomic nervous system of individuals with healthy boundaries responds differently to interpersonal stress. They don't slip into fight or flight mode as easily. They can maintain a state of social engagement even under pressure. This means the narcissist can't emotionally activate them in the way they need to maintain control. It's like trying to start a fire with wet wood. It just won't catch. The fourth characteristic is a lack of need for approval. Carl Jung observed that one of humanity's greatest vulnerabilities is the need to be loved and accepted by others. The narcissist exploits this need ruthlessly. They offer conditional approval, withdrawing it whenever the victim doesn't behave as they want. It's a constant game of push and pull, designed to keep the victim hooked. But the individuated person doesn't need the narcissist's approval. They don't need anyone's approval, for that matter. They already approve of themselves. They already accept themselves. They already know their own worth. No amount of external validation will add anything to that, and no amount of rejection will take anything away. They are their own source of validation. This makes the narcissist's manipulation tactics completely useless. The cycle of idealization and devaluation simply doesn't work when the person doesn't care about the idealization and isn't hurt by the devaluation. It's like trying to bargain with someone who already has everything they need. The narcissist is left with no tools. They are powerless. Huberman explains that the need for approval is linked to attachment patterns formed in childhood. People with secure attachment have developed an internal base of self-worth that doesn't depend on external sources. Their cortisol levels and amygdala activation don't spike in the same way when they face rejection or criticism. They have a built-in emotional buffer. For the narcissist, encountering someone like this is like finding an impenetrable fortress. They have no way in, no way to manipulate, no way to control. It's like hitting a brick wall at full speed. The fifth characteristic is perhaps the most important. The individuated person has integrated their own shadow. This means they know their dark sides. They recognize their own capacity for anger, envy, manipulation, cruelty. They don't project these qualities onto others because they've already accepted them within themselves. They've made peace with their inner demons. The narcissist uses projection as a weapon. They project their own cruelty, their own dishonesty, their own manipulation onto the victim. And the victim, if they don't know their own shadow, accepts these projections. They start to believe that they are the problem, that they are the cruel, dishonest, manipulative person. They internalize the narcissist's lies, but the individuated person doesn't accept projections. They know their shadow too well to confuse it with someone else's. When the narcissist tries to project onto them, they simply give it back. Not aggressively, but clearly. This isn't mine. This is yours. It's like holding up a mirror to the narcissist's own darkness. Carl Jung explained that shadow integration creates a kind of immunity to other people's projections. You can't be falsely accused of something you've already recognized and integrated within yourself. The accusation simply doesn't stick. It bounces right off. Huberman relates this to the ability of cognitive differentiation. People who have done significant inner work can distinguish between their own emotions and the emotions that others try to induce in them. They aren't easily contaminated by the narcissist's emotional state. They have a firewall against emotional contagion. Now comes the most interesting part. What happens when the narcissist encounters a person like this? Carl Jung described several typical reactions. The first is avoidance. The narcissist simply walks away. They perceive, even if unconsciously, that this person won't be a good source of supply. They require too much effort. They don't react in the expected way. So they look for easier prey. It's a matter of conserving resources. If you've had the experience of a narcissist who seemed interested in you suddenly losing interest for no apparent reason, it may be that they sensed you wouldn't be an easy victim. Narcissists are efficient predators. They don't waste energy on targets that won't yield. They move on to greener pastures. The second reaction is aggression. If the narcissist can't avoid the individuated person, for example in a work or family environment, they may become openly hostile. Not the subtle hostility they use with victims who are still under their control. A more raw, more desperate hostility. A full-blown tantrum. This happens because the individuated person represents an existential threat to the narcissist. They prove that it's possible to exist without the masks, without the manipulation, without the control. They are a living reminder of everything the narcissist can't be. And that's unbearable for them. It shatters their fragile ego. Huberman explains that when the narcissist can't get the supply they need, they enter a state of narcissistic frustration that activates intense stress responses. Their cortisol levels spike. Their amygdala enters hyperactivation. They literally enter survival mode. It's like their entire being is under attack, and people in survival mode are capable of extreme behaviors. They will do anything to protect their fragile ego. It's important to understand this. If you are an individuated person and are dealing with a narcissist, you need to be prepared for this possibility of escalation. The narcissist can become more aggressive, more defamatory, more dangerous when they realize they can't control you. They might even resort to sabotage or smear campaigns. The third reaction is what Carl Jung called envious admiration. The narcissist may paradoxically feel drawn to the individuated person. They have something the narcissist desperately wants, a sense of real self. An identity that doesn't depend on constant performance. An inner peace they've never experienced. A genuine connection to themselves. But this admiration is always mixed with envy, and the narcissist's envy is corrosive. They want what you have, but aren't willing to do the work necessary to develop it. So, instead of learning from you, they try to diminish you. If I can't have it, you won't have it either. It's a twisted form of leveling the playing field. Huberman talks about how envy activates circuits of social pain in the brain. Seeing someone possess something you desire intensely but can't obtain is genuinely painful. And the narcissist, who already lives in a state of chronic emotional pain, can't tolerate this additional pain. It's a constant reminder of their own perceived inadequacy. The fourth reaction is the smear campaign. If the narcissist can't control you directly, they'll try to control how others see you. They'll spread lies and they'll distort facts. They'll paint you as the cruel, unstable, problematic person they themselves are. They'll rewrite history to fit their narrative. This is especially common when the individuated person decides to leave a relationship with the narcissist. They can't accept that you left them because you saw through them, so they reconstruct the narrative. In their version, you are the villain. They are the innocent victim. It's a complete reversal of reality. The individuated person needs to be prepared for this and, crucially, not care excessively. Because here's the truth. The people who matter will see the truth eventually. And those who don't probably weren't people who should be in your life anyway. Let them go. Carl Jung talked about how the process of individuation naturally filters relationships. As you become more authentic, some people will drift away. That's not a loss, it's a purification. And that's a good thing. You're losing those who could only relate to your masks, not to who you really are. Now let's talk about how you can develop these characteristics, because most people aren't born individuated. It's a process, a work, a journey. The first step is developing self-awareness. This means paying attention to your own patterns. Why do you react in certain ways? What destabilizes you emotionally? What are your unmet needs that make you vulnerable to manipulation? Carl Jung insisted that self-knowledge is the foundation of all psychological transformation. You can't change what you can't see, and most people live on autopilot, repeating unconscious patterns that keep them trapped. Andrew Huberman recommends specific practices to increase interoceptive awareness. Meditation focused on bodily sensations, journaling about emotional states, regular pauses during the day to check in with how you're feeling. All of these practices strengthen the mind-body connection that's essential for individuation. The second step is working on your shadow. This means looking honestly at the parts of yourself you prefer to hide. Your anger, your envy, your capacity for manipulation, your desires that you judge as unacceptable. Carl Jung warned that the shadow doesn't disappear when ignored. It strengthens. And the more you repress it, the more it controls you in unconscious ways. The only solution is to bring light to the darkness, to recognize and integrate these parts, instead of pretending they don't exist. Shadow work can be done alone through journaling and honest self-reflection, but it's often more effective with the support of a qualified therapist, especially if you carry significant traumas. The third step is developing healthy boundaries. This starts with knowing what you want and what you don't want, what's acceptable to you and what's not, and then communicating this clearly and maintaining your position even under pressure. Boundaries aren't walls. You're not isolating yourself from the world. Boundaries are doors that you control. You decide who enters. when they enter, and under what conditions. Andrew Huberman explains that maintaining boundaries requires emotional regulation. When someone pushes your limits, your nervous system naturally enters a state of alert. You need to be able to remain calm and centered, even in that state of alert. That's a skill that can be developed with practice. The fourth step is cultivating internal sources of validation. This means learning to approve of yourself, to accept yourself, to value yourself, independently of what others think or say. I'm not talking about arrogance or narcissism. I'm talking about a quiet acceptance of who you are, including your imperfections. You don't need to be perfect to value yourself. You can value yourself exactly as you are, while continuing to work to grow. Carl Jung spoke about finding what he called the self, the true center of the psyche that exists beyond the ego and all its masks. When you connect with that center, the need for external approval naturally diminishes. You already have what you need and within you. The fifth step is to practice detachment. This doesn't mean not caring about anything. It means not becoming so strongly attached to the outcomes that you lose your inner peace when things don't go as planned. The narcissist manipulates through attachment. They offer you something you want desperately, whether it's love, approval, or security, and then threaten to take it away. If you're not attached, that tactic doesn't work. Andrew Huberman talks about how excessive attachment is linked to activation of the reward system. When you desire something intensely, your brain enters a state of anticipation that can be hijacked by manipulators. Mindfulness practices can help to modulate that response. Now, I need to give an important warning. Developing these characteristics doesn't mean you'll never be affected by narcissists again. It doesn't mean you'll become invulnerable to every type of manipulation. It means you'll be a much less attractive target and much more difficult to destroy. Individuation is an ongoing process, not a final destination. There will always be more work to do, more layers to integrate, more awareness to develop, and sometimes even quite individuated people can be caught off guard by especially skilled manipulators. What changes is the recovery. The individuated person can be temporarily destabilized, but they return to center much more quickly. They don't get stuck in the cycle of trauma that the narcissist tries to create. They get up, dust themselves off, and move on. Carl Jung had a phrase that captures this perfectly. I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. The narcissist wants you to be defined by what they did to you. They want the trauma they caused to become your identity. But the individuated person refuses to accept that definition. They recognize what happened, process the pain, and then choose who they're going to be, despite it. Andrew Huberman confirms that this capacity to redefine yourself after trauma has real neurological bases. Neuroplasticity allows the brain to form new patterns even after devastating experiences. You're not stuck as the person that the trauma created. You can transform yourself into something new, and that transformation is exactly what the narcissist fears the most. Because when you transform yourself, you escape their control. You prove that they don't have the power they believe they have. You become the living evidence that they're not as important as they think. For the narcissist, this is intolerable. They need to believe they're the center of the universe, that they have absolute power over their victims, that their actions have permanent and devastating consequences. When you get up and thrive despite them, you destroy that illusion. And that's why the best revenge against a narcissist, it seems, is no revenge at all. It's simply living well. It's becoming the best version of yourself. It's building a life so full and authentic that they become irrelevant. Carl Jung said that individuation is the most important task of human life. And one of the reasons is exactly this. When you become whole, you liberate yourself not only from your own limitations, but also from the power that toxic people have over you. You don't need to play their games anymore. You don't need to defend yourself against their tactics. You simply exist on a level that they can't reach or threaten. If you are or have been in a relationship with a narcissist, know that healing is possible. The work is difficult, but it's worth it. And on the other side of that work exists a freedom that you may have never experienced, the freedom to be yourself, without fear, of holding your boundaries without guilt, of trusting your instincts without question, of existing fully without needing anyone's approval. This is the person the narcissist fears, and that person can be you. If this content resonated with you, if you recognize these dynamics in your own life, leave a comment sharing your experience. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, send them this video. Sometimes the right information, at the right time, can change a life. The journey of individuation continues, and every step you take is a step toward freedom. But before we wrap up, I need to address something crucial that many people don't understand about the dynamics with narcissists. There's a fundamental difference between avoiding narcissists and becoming immune to them. The individuated person doesn't need to run from narcissists. They can be in the same room as one, work at the same company, even have one in the family, without being destroyed by it. This is liberating, in a way that those who've never experienced it can't imagine, because the reality is, narcissists are everywhere. If your only strategy is to avoid them completely, you'll spend your life limiting your possibilities out of fear. The individuated person doesn't live in fear. They live with clarity. They see the narcissist for who they are, adjust their behavior accordingly, and move on. They're not sucked into the drama. They're not manipulated by the tactics. They simply navigate the situation with a quiet competence. Carl Jung observed that many of his patients, most traumatized by narcissists, had something in common. They initially idealized the narcissist. They saw only the mask of perfection and ignored the warning signs. And when the mask fell, the shock was devastating. The individuated person doesn't idealize anyone. They see people as they really are, a mixture of light and shadow, qualities and flaws. This protects them from both devastating disappointments and relationships based on illusions. Andrew Huberman talks about how idealization is linked to the activation of the reward system. When you idealize someone, your brain releases dopamine in anticipation of the perfect person you imagine. But that person doesn't exist. And when reality sets in, the dopamine crash is brutal. The individuated person keeps their reward system regulated because their expectations are realistic. They can appreciate the genuine qualities of others without inventing qualities that don't exist. And when they discover flaws, they're not devastated because they never expected perfection. Another important thing, the individuated person doesn't need to save anyone. And this is especially relevant when it comes to narcissists, because many narcissists are masters at awakening the rescue instinct in people. They present themselves as misunderstood victims, as wounded souls who just need enough love to be healed, as diamonds in the rough, waiting for someone special to polish their true beauty. And many well-intentioned people take the bait. They believe their love will be different, that they'll succeed where everyone else has failed. That behind the cruelty, there's a good person and waiting to be rescued. Carl Jung was very clear about this. You can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. The narcissist doesn't want to change. They want narcissistic supply. And if you enter the relationship with the fantasy of saving them, you'll end up being the victim, not the savior. The individuated person recognizes this dynamic and refuses to participate in it. They know that their energy is precious and should be invested in people who genuinely want to grow, not in people who want to drain. Andrew Huberman talks about how the instinct to care for others can be neurologically hijacked. The same system that makes us want to help people in need can be manipulated by narcissists to keep us trapped in destructive relationships. Awareness of this possibility is the first step to protecting yourself. And here we come to a point that can be difficult to accept. The person the narcissist fears is not necessarily the kindest or most compassionate person. In the traditional sense, they may seem cold or distant to those who are accustomed to the emotional codependency that narcissists prefer. But this apparent coldness is actually health. It's the ability to maintain one's own integrity instead of dissolving into other people's problems. It's the recognition that each person is responsible for their own growth, and that trying to carry another's burden is ultimately disrespecting their autonomy. Carl Jung called this mature love, a love that respects boundaries, that doesn't try to control or fix, that offers presence without getting lost, that can say, "I love you," and at the same time, say no when necessary. The narcissist can't process this type of love. They're accustomed to love as transaction, as control, as possession, a love that simply is, without demands or manipulations, is incomprehensible to them. And maybe this is the final irony. The narcissist, who's desperately seeking love their whole life, is incapable of recognizing or receiving true love. When they find it, they can only relate to distorted substitutes that confirm their sick worldview. The individuated person can feel compassion for this tragedy without being destroyed by it. They can recognize the genuine suffering behind the abusive behavior without using it as an excuse to accept the abuse. They can wish the narcissist well from a distance while protecting their own peace. This is psychological maturity in its purest form, and it's exactly what years of inner work produce. If you're at the beginning of this journey, know that the path is long, but every step is worth it. The person you'll be at the end isn't just immune to narcissists. They're freer, more authentic, more alive than you ever imagined possible. The work isn't easy. There will be moments of pain, of confusion, of doubt. There will be relapses into old patterns. There will be dark nights of the soul, where you'll question whether it's worth continuing. It is always worth it, because on the other side, there's a life that's not defined by manipulators, a life where you are the author of your own story, a life where your inner peace doesn't depend on anyone's behavior. That life is waiting for you, and the narcissist who seems so powerful today, one day, they'll just be a memory of what you overcame to become who you really are. The journey continues, and you are stronger than you imagine.